Welcome and thank you all for joining us for this episode of the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. In this show, we cover a broad range of topics that cater to both CRE newcomers and industry leaders alike. I'm your host, Shanti Ryle, Director of Content Marketing here at Crexi, and today we are so excited to sit down with the one, the only, Cory Zelnik of Zelnik Company. Before we dive in, a little bit about our guest. A veteran real estate broker and founder and CEO of Zelnik Co., Cory Zelnik has launched, crafted, and packaged some of the largest corporate real estate expansions on the East Coast, from working with legendary banking and investment staple JP Morgan Chase and food service giants Panda Express, Smashburger, Lenwich, and Dunkin' Donuts. Cory has presided over and specialized in the retail needs of prominent property owners and institutions, along with top national retailers for more than 3 decades. With his independent real estate firm and team, he continues to solidify his name as a brand with preparedness, discipline, and integrity. Cory prides himself on loyalty, respect, and trust, with a focus on retail space and the value it adds to a property economically. Cory recognizes that the real estate market in the tri-state area is constantly evolving. Thus, so is he. His track record has mirrored the upward swing of real estate business, growing, building, and maintaining its structure and polish since the late 1980s. In a quickly transforming world, Zelnik and Company happily pivots in the direction of change. Social media. Cory is at Cory Zelnik on all social channels, along with his company account at Zelnik Co., have made great strides in entering and engaging in the social media world, which is true. That's how we met in person, which we'll get into. Zelnik and Company understands that properly utilizing social media platforms not only boost one's own brand, but also increases the opportunities for their clients. Cory is a graduate of University of Maryland and a member of ICSC. He is also the host of the Zelnik Exchange, a New York City-based podcast with a pulse on the nation's top retail trends. He resides in Manhattan with his wife, Jessica, daughter, Bailey, and stepson, Max. When Cory is not doing all that and running his business, his passions include running the streets of New York City and raising money for ALS, the University of Maryland, and the New York Knicks. Cory, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Shanti. I'm looking forward to spending some time together.
Oh, yeah, this is gonna be a fun one. I'm very,
Okay.
very excited. You're a seasoned pro at this. You've done plenty of podcast interviews. You host your own podcast. But I think we'll be getting into some stuff you don't usually get super into today. So I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. I hope to challenge you a little bit.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Let's do it. So before we get into the nuts and bolts, I'd love to hear more in your own words how you first got into commercial real estate over 30 years ago, and what was that first taste of it like for you? How did it hook you in?
Oh, it's a fabulous story. I came out of the University of Maryland with a liberal arts degree. I thought I was going to Wall Street.
Hmm.
I had no clue, and I always say this: I don't blame my parents for lack of direction. And when Wall Street basically laughed at me, I said, "Uh-oh, now what?" I had no job. I decided I was going to spend some time playing a lot of softball over the summer. I needed things to do coming out of school.
Sure.
And then one day I got a phone call from a friend of mine who was working for a small, it was actually at the time was one of the only retail leasing companies, retail specific. At the time, people weren't focused on it. It was a retail specific company here in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
He was working in their Long Island division, and he said they're looking for somebody from Manhattan. They will pay you $250 a week to walk the streets, and that's how I got into the business.
Okay, like
Very
literally just go
exciting story.
exercise.
And back, and things were different then. So I met the gentleman who eventually hired me. I think it was about an 11-minute interview. He
Wow.
said, "You're hired." He said, "You're hired. Come back the Tuesday after Labor Day." So I got my summer beach volleyball, softball, all that good stuff. I was there Tuesday after Labor Day. And again, back then things were different. So I show up in a suit and tie, ready to go.
Hmm.
It's about as hot as it is out today, which is 90 plus degrees. And he handed me a clipboard and a pen. And he said, "Walk up First Avenue all the way to 96th Street and then walk back
Oof.
down Second Avenue." And that's how it all started.
Oof. Well, you got your steps in, that's for sure. Oh my gosh, I hope it was a linen suit.
No, it was not. It was not a linen suit, and it was hard leather shoes. So
Ooh,
there were a lot of quick lessons learned
sure.
day one.
Sure. It's probably slowed you down, so you really took in all the detail, right?
I
Not moving
I
too
mean,
fast.
not very often do you see a suit jacket
Yeah.
soaked through in sweat.
Ugh, brutal. Yeah, New
Yeah,
York in the summertime can really get you. So,
absolutely.
you're walking the streets of New York, you're getting up close and personal with these buildings.
Hmm.
What is the story of the first deal you got to work on? And what about it made you go, "Ah, yes, retail, leasing, this is it for me."
Well, when I took that job, that was specifically
Yeah.
a a research job, for lack of a better term. You know, it's
Mm.
walking the streets. And by the way, just as a side note, when someone joins my company, I have a few kids that are out of school that join my company, they get told the same thing: go walk the streets,
Yeah.
because we do storefronts. Our
Sure.
business is on the street. It's
Mhm. Mhm.
literally on the street. And so back then, it was, like I said, it was research. My first couple of years did a little bit bouncing around, but when it came to my first deal, it was I walked in to a local Chinese restaurant, okay, because the company I was working for at the time, we had a space assignment given to us, and it was a former restaurant.
Mhm.
Walked into this Chinese restaurant, was able to figure out who the owner was, talked to him about it, showed him the space, and boom and boom and boom. Certainly not that fast from a time perspective, but that's how it all happened. And I think
Mm.
it was that interaction, that personal interaction, that I liked about the business.
Mm.
Uh, has been a long-standing appeal to me.
Sure.
Now, we're not curing cancer. This is not rocket science. Nothing we do on any level in all my years of business is a stop what you're doing emergency, but it's very personal. It's very time consuming,
Mm.
and that whole dynamic was quite the appeal, and that has
Mm.
stuck with me to today. And
Sure.
so I what I liked about it.
Yeah, and you're getting to interface with, the people who are the passion behind these businesses and these
Yes.
retailers, and, it takes a whole lot of cojones to start
Oh yeah,
to run a
and
business and to grow it and expand it, so getting to interface with those kinds of energies and peoples and help them facilitate that growth has gotta be really rewarding.
it is, and at that stage of a career, that's what you're dealing with. You know, you don't walk into JP Morgan Chase and say, "Hey, do you want to open up another branch?" Right?
Mhm.
So at that stage, that interaction is fabulous.
Mhm, absolutely. So, you get that first Chinese restaurant, you get them their new deal,
Right.
and how does it progress from there? What did some early wins look like in your career that you feel really kind of helped you skip along the ladder of success? And, as you've grown in your career, what did success look like in those early days versus for you in your business today? How do you think
Well,
about it differently?
I look at it two ways, right? So the early success, that's a fun, sort of first story.
Mm.
An early success was doing the first blockbuster video here in New York City, and so
Rest
that
in
will
peace.
that will certainly date me a little bit.
Ah.
But the lesson there was understanding the national tenant thinking and what goes into that and the mindset behind it. And quite frankly, because it
Mm,
plays a lot today in my business, what you wind up educating a lot of the national chains about, specifically New York City, is that you need to tell them to take the word prototype and throw it out the window, because Manhattan and even the outer boroughs are not made up of 40 by 100 or 25 by 100. It's not the way the buildings weren't built for the retailer. The
mm,
buildings were built with other purposes in mind most often, and so you have to be able to bend and flex. And so that was a fun early on lesson. But quite frankly, what takes you through this career, not mine, but I think most, is how you deal with the failures. It's fun. It's certainly
Mm.
fun to talk about the first blockbuster video and things like that, but it's how you deal with the deals that you lose
Yeah,
for one reason or another. And so it was a lot of that in the early parts of my career.
sure.
It was that. It was also, and you'll hear me say this probably for the last time. I don't blame anybody else, but like when I made money in that early money making stage, I was never really informed of my uncle. Now, you have the same uncle that I have. That's Uncle Sam. And so when you make money as a broker, you're paid on a
Mhm.
1099 basis, and you have to pay your own taxes.
Mhm.
And so that caught me a little bit at an early part of my career, and I got myself unfortunately into some financial trouble, but was
Mm.
able to, with a great stroke of luck, I was introduced to a group called CVS Pharmacy. You may be familiar with them.
Mhm.
Um, and at the time, they were a small chain of 1,100 stores, and they had no presence in the New York City metropolitan area. And
Wow.
they were looking for a real estate director. And again, through a stroke of luck, I had a friend who knew somebody, introduced me to their head of real estate, who loathed brokers, understood their purpose, but loathed brokers. So I had to work my way through that in the interview process. But
Mm.
I had the great good fortune to land that job,
Wow.
and it was there were a lot of pluses. One, it set me straight personally, financially. I got myself more organized,
Yeah.
uh, and then most importantly, I really got a master's degree in corporate retail real estate at street level, and that's held with me up until this minute. And
Absolutely.
I was very grateful for that. So I took some bumps and bruises. Came out the other end with some luck.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was gonna ask, if you had any favorite mistakes, but that definitely sounds like one. It's I am actually, I think I've mentioned on a previous podcast, but I'm actually taking Bethany Babcock's course right now, the CRE launch program. And one of the
Nice.
first things she talks about, anyone who wants to be a broker, you have your taxes, you have your insurance, you have to bolster your savings, you have
Right.
to think of all these expenses you have before you can think of any profit you net because you have to still build up your business and your contact list. So
Right.
don't get
And I,
excited. Get excited, but
right.
don't get too excited.
Exactly. So I don't teach a course, but I teach my guys when they
Mhm.
come in, or just people that I interview when we meet. They everyone's excited, and I
Mhm.
think I could sell anybody on this business. I can make you a broker in this during this interview, right? But I don't do it that way. I'm honest, and I say, listen, it's going to take 2 years or so to just start making money. So
Mhm.
go home, talk to your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, your boy, whoever it is,
Mhm.
and understand your financials, understand your personal financial
Yep.
situation. So that's that start. Then when they come on board and they get to work, and I know you allude to the insurance and the taxes. What I say to the guys or the girls, I say, listen, when you make a deal, look at it as 25% is what you're
Mhm.
putting in your pocket.
Mhm.
What? Well, part of it goes to the company, part of it goes to taxes and insurance and what have you, and the
Mhm.
rest will go in your pocket.
Yep.
So if you work, and it's very hard, you say it, and then they all say yes, yes, yes. But when you hand them the check and reality hits,
Yeah.
whatever. But that's the reality of it all
Mhm.
when you look at it practically, and if you can go with that mindset on a regular basis, it'll keep you calmer
Mhm.
as you proceed. But it takes time to get there.
Yes, yes, yeah, if you, it's also a matter of, I think, kind of lowering your expectations. Like, if you expect this is how much I'm gonna take home, you're not gonna get as, like, woo, wrapped up in the
Right.
first commission check, the euphoria of winning the deal. You still gotta get to the next one and make it an actually sustainable business. Um,
Absolutely.
I do wanna touch on something you said with, winning over the director of real estate at CVS. You were very lucky, like you said,
Yes.
to get that connection and to get that job. What do you think he saw in you? Or what about you do you think charmed him and convinced him that you were the right person for the task of bringing CVS to New York?
Right. Well, besides what I call my natural New York charm and personality, I will say, more seriously, I know my markets.
Mm,
One of the things I did was I learned early on, whether it was just the literal walking of the streets, but you don't get to walk all the streets in the outer boroughs of New York necessarily all the time. I just knew my markets, and I think I presented well as someone who could be corporate, because brokers aren't looked at as corporate.
mm,
And so I just sort of prepped to come across in a more corporate like manner.
mm,
And I do better now, but I think I did okay then. I mean, I got the job, I did okay then. And I was a good listener. And
mm,
and that's something I preach with with my guys now. But I was a good listener, and so when I heard what his objectives were, the conversations fit into that groove, if you understand. As a
mhm,
broker, because you can walk into that meeting, and as a broker, you think about wanting to do all of these deals, okay? Because that's what we do. But the reality is that at 1,100 stores, obviously they're considered a big chain. They were a huge corporation, and coming into a new market, my market at the time, right, is for them is like turning a battleship. It
mm,
wasn't like, okay, we're hiring this guy and we're going to do 100 stores in New York. It was, we're hiring this guy, we're going to get to understand the market and how we can fit in
mhm,
this market. And that's how we're going to proceed. And what that led to, quite frankly, was my 3 year period that I was with them, the first 6 months being pure training, was that by the end of year 3, we had identified about 15 locations, and some of them were ground up development, things like that. They just put a pause on my role, and they said, let's build them, let's open them, let's see if we can do the business that we think we can do in this market.
mhm,
And that's what led, to me moving on, because I was literally at a standstill. They felt bad, but they were paying me,
mhm.
but I was at a standstill.
Yeah.
And whether it comes through the screen or not, I'm a hyper New Yorker. I'm not good at standing still.
You walk up and down
That's
all of
it.
the island
Never, never stop.
the
Never
single
stop.
day. Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense, and, I really wanna underline what you said about listening, because I think a lot of brokers, like you said, they come in, they've got dollar signs in their eyes, they're like, "How do I just get this from A to Z?"
Right.
And the bigger picture ultimately is about you want to have a long-term relationship with these clients because one deal could lead to 3 deals, to 10 deals, to 15 locations, like you
Right.
said. And it's all about, if you know your market, you know what information to pull from to bring into the conversation,
Mhm.
but you gotta be the service provider, the
Yeah.
advisor, be of service to these folks, and that absolutely is what I hear it again and again on this podcast.
Sure.
You gotta listen. It's all about what they're looking to do. You are there to help support their goals.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in that regard, touching on the relationship focused side of it, you've been with some of your clients for 10, 20 years.
Mhm.
How do you think of cultivating and maintaining relationships with whether it's local tenants or these national retailers?
Well, so just so Lenwich, who that you were pronouncing, Lenwich is he's known to New York. He's a 20 store chain
Mm.
just in New York City, and so I have that, and then I have the Panda, and previously I had Dwayne Reed and CBS.
I love the panda, by the way.
The Panda, sorry,
It's like
sorry,
The Rock, the
Panda,
panda.
Panda Express.
Yeah.
Uh, but what you do is, my approach is I like to go in and really understand, back to the whole listening thing.
Hmm.
And I really want to understand. I never look at it as a singular store transaction. I'd like to take the approach of, I'm your partner.
Hmm.
I'm not presumptuous, but I come in and I speak to you like I'm your partner. And I was talking about this earlier today with someone. What's always so interesting about our business is that whether it's Lenwich or Panda Express or CVS Pharmacy, they're all every day it's a new business, and it's a new mentality, and it's a new approach, and a
Hmm.
new understanding of a new thing. And so I find that great. And so I spend a lot of time trying to really, really understand it, as opposed to saying, here's a site. It's 2,000 square feet. It's going to cost you 200,000 a year. Let's make a deal. I just don't do that.
Hmm.
Uh, and I shy away from that, and in the industry, you can get paid a lot of money for being that guy. It's not a path that I've chosen in terms of my approach. And so through that, I build these long-standing relationships.
Hmm.
Panda Express, we're coming up on 19 years. Um, Lenwich is 12 years, and now they just got bought out by private equity, and so maybe there's a big rollout that comes from that. And who knows? I represent one of the largest independent landlords here in New York City for coming up on 24 years,
Hmm.
because I take the approach of partnership, and let's understand what's best for you, not the deal and the commission.
Hmm.
Let's look at and see what this looks like, and that's how I try. And I tell my guys, I say, look, this is how I do it. If you're going to spend time here with me, that's how I'm going to educate you. You can go to this firm or that firm, and you can be wheeling and dealing and making deals all day long in a certain manner. And I appreciate you. I love you. If that's what you want to do, by all means, go do it. God bless.
Hmm.
But that's not how I'm going to do it here.
Sure. I'm curious, before we move on to the leasing scene in New York, as
Sure.
someone who so values these long-standing relationships, how do you think about prospecting? How do you think about prospecting and going after new business?
Well, I think about, we follow, at this stage of life, there's a fair amount of referral stuff that comes your way.
Mhm.
I will tell you that I'm not often cold calling and cold prospecting. I'm
You
meeting people.
crested you crested the hill, you don't have to anymore.
I don't look at it that way so much, but it's just, what happens is when you're doing the business with the relationships that are fortunately busy relationships,
Mhm.
it's hard to do some of that. So you do constant networking, and you alluded to it in your open. Social media has brought some opportunities for me. So that's how some of my prospecting gets done. A
Mm.
little bit, it's a little bit different, but it's more today, right? That's how these things get done. And so I build upon it from that, and then I go in with my same approach when the
Mm.
opportunity arises. I take my same approach. And look, some fail and some are successes. And when I say fail, meaning they didn't grow, or in the end of the day they decided they needed, the corporate CBRE or JLL or what have you. I'm the boutique. Roll your sleeves up. I'll get dirty with you. This is how we're going to do it.
Mm.
Approach. But that's how I do a lot of that. A
Sure.
lot of that prospecting is via networking, social media.
Sure. Yeah, it's more about the brand marketing and getting your name out there, and then people know your reputation and come to you, which is nice. It's what you want.
Exactly. Yeah. And you've certainly heard it before. This is a relationship business, and you want to build on them and expand upon them as best you can.
Yep, 100%. Um, Before we shift gears, what would 25-year-old Corey think of where you are today? And would you give him any advice?
Well, I think 25-year-old Corey would get a kick out of it. That sort of, that the name is on the door,
Mm.
and that I show up in a podcast, and I'm on the air on a radio show here in New York, once a week, and I think he'd get a kick out of all that stuff.
Mm.
Uh, and the only thing, what I would tell my 25-year-old self, which I was unable to do because no one told me, and again, pointing no fingers, was to
Save your money.
really, really, just understand the long game.
Mm.
Take a deep breath, understand the discipline, understand the patience that's required. Because I was the hyper kid who, and I got him sitting in my office, so I teach them every day and talk to them
Mm.
every day, because you want it, and things happen, and there are so many things that are just not predictable that
Mm.
happen. I mean, just imagine, you got a slew of deals that are cooking, come January, February of 20, and they're all going to finish up first quarter, and then COVID happens. Things, they're unexplainable, can't plan on them, and so and things happen, and clearly that's not a daily occurrence,
Mhm.
but shit happens. Just shit happens. And so I would tell 25-year-old just to be cool and breathe. Like I tell people today, just breathe, understand it's going to take some time.
Absolutely. Play the long game, but
Play the
be
long game.
adaptable in the short term.
That's it.
Absolutely. All right. Let's chat New York. It is its own beast, its own market. The retail scene in particular, like you said, none of these buildings were built for retails. It's funny you said CVS because I remember a CVS was the first store I walked into the first time I visited New York, and I was like, "What is happening in here?" Because I'm used to the sprawling pharmacies in California, you know.
Well,
Um,
I wonder which one you went to.
it was somewhere between, like, 40th and 45th Street, I think. We were staying, close-ish to Times Square on to the west of it, I think on
Okay.
42nd. Um,
So,
yeah, that was before I knew the streets a little better. Now I've been a
all
few more
good, all
times.
good.
But paint a picture for us, for people who don't know New York, what the heck does it look like? What's something people get wrong about the retail scene there? What's something unexpected, and what's something that really excites you about it?
Well, well, I'll work backwards with that list
Sure.
of questions. There's nothing wrong. No,
It's
there's
perfect.
what's exciting is that you can literally go in certain cases block to block, and markets just change completely in
Mm,
in the manner that someone may say to you in Tennessee, that you go from town to town. Okay,
mhm.
you drive from one town in Tennessee, and you drive 50 miles to get to the next town. Here you walk one block, and a market literally changes right before your eyes. And so it can be the coolest thing if you have a good, wide open perspective. You could be on Fifth Avenue in the 50s, which is some of the primest retail real estate in the world, where the rents are in the vicinity of $3,500 and $4,000 per square foot. Okay. And then you walk a
It's
block
expensive.
over, okay, right? And you walk a block over, and it drops dramatically to $700 a square foot, also an enormous number.
Mhm.
But then you can go one more block, and you're at 300. So the markets change. There are parts of if I forgot who I told this to one day, or I was speaking with one day. Like, I could walk you up Fifth Avenue, or I can walk you up Madison Avenue, and in chunks break up the market,
Mm,
because it changes like that along the avenues. And so it's very, very exciting. And then you have historic areas in Soho, and the meatpacking district, and the West Village, and then you have more normal high rises on the Upper East and the Upper West that all have retail components, but you play to different customers and different markets.
mhm.
So that's amazingly exciting. A negative about New York and retail is look, it's expensive. It's an expensive town to do business in,
Mhm.
and I'm not just talking about where it's 4,000 a square foot in rent. The politics of the city, paying the bills and the fees and things like that. It's expensive.
Mm.
So that's somewhat of a negative about it, but there's no place like it.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm curious, for national retailers, national tenants coming in, maybe they have an existing space. You were mentioning earlier, throw out the prototype. It's not going to work in New York. What does the process of a tenant, once they find a space, moving in and figuring out how to make it their own look like? How do you think about that when you're looking for a spot for these folks?
So you go out, most often you're going out with a basic understanding of what their needs are from a demographic perspective. In a simple form, there's a group of tenants that want to be in the midtown market by the office workers, getting all of that traffic, and then there are others that want to be in the residential markets,
Mhm.
and then there are others that want to be in the tourist markets. So when you get past that and you have an understanding of where they want to be, then you have to work into what are their needs. Do they need 2,000 feet? Do they need 5,000 feet, etc.? You're spending the first 6 months educating them about pricing in the various markets, because
Mm.
no matter where you tell them, they're going to choke because New York is expensive.
Yeah, it's a sticker shock.
Right. And so then when you get past some of those hurdles, and you start to get into a negotiation, the bigger companies, they'll spend the money to understand it truly, and so they'll bring in their team of architects and designers, and even like Panda, they come from the West Coast, but they have a local team of architects and designers that work with their construction departments.
Mm.
You really need to have people with boots on the ground here to understand the dynamics of the buildings department.
Mhm.
Con Edison, which is our electrical provider and gas provider, things like that are very, very important
Mhm.
to have the local. And I advise them about that early on, because you make a huge mistake, a very expensive mistake, if you think you're going to come in out of Cali, or you're going to come in out of Texas and think you know it because you're building them all over. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work that way. It's eaten everybody alive ever,
Mm.
ever. And so you take them through that, and so then they fit it. They fit it. And like I was saying, we talked about earlier, not every box is 20 by 100. And so when you get your 2,247 square feet that has a little bit of an L shape in the
Yeah,
back,
it always curves around.
right? You got to get the team in, and you got to
Yeah.
understand it, and you work through that. And that's all part of the process, and all of that is going on. And I will tell you that a fast Panda deal, from introduction to execution, a fast one will take 9 months,
Wow.
and that's
Without any, like, crazy build out or anything.
that's with an existing structure. So
Yeah.
it's not like someone's building it up from dirt.
Yeah.
It's there. And most of them, quite frankly, have been more. And so,
Whew. What is, what are some goodies that landlords throw in these cases, knowing that their market's so unique, knowing they're building their neighborhoods really well. Do you see, especially when it comes to national tenants, there's a good amount of wiggle room for any TI allowance, any particular kinds of build out, any rent deferrals as they're getting set up? What do you see in that negotiation process?
well, the market has shifted a lot. The New York City landlord historically was sort of a "fu, we're the best, good luck." Okay, but the world has changed over time, and there are cycles and market shifts, and landlords are affected just the same. And better quality tenants come in with different demands, and so the landlords have wised up,
Hmm.
for the most part. When you have a quality, credit worthy tenant, you're looking at extended concession periods of 6 to 9 months of free rent. You're looking at some modest TI packages, and you're looking at, maybe you get some air conditioning, a bathroom, and things like
Yeah,
that.
that'd be nice.
But for a long time, for a long, long time, it was
Hmm.
"fu, 6 months free, good luck."
Yeah. Is that just in, like, kind of the last 5 years or so? And I'm curious too, does any of that play into, the mom and pop, the more local retailers too? Do they have the same kind of leverage if their business model has been proven out successfully, or is it more still that same relationship of, figure it out?
Right. Well, two questions, right? So the
Yeah.
one is, I would say it's probably about a 10 or 12-year phenomena when New
Mm.
York has landlords have come to understand that you need to have TI packages, and you need to do some work for
Yeah.
the better quality tenants, from a credit perspective. Secondarily, the mom and pops, unfortunately, they don't catch a break. Um, you know, Depending on their track, there's the mom and pop who decided they want to go into the retail business, and then there's the mom and pop who wants to do their second or third store. And so you check track record, you check bank statements, see what their credibility
Mm,
looks like, and how much risk you want to put as a landlord, how much risk you want to take. But
mhm.
most often, they're coming in and they're going to get 3 or 4 months of a concession period to go build out their space.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, when you're representing these tenants, the mom and
Mhm.
pops, how do you set them up for success? You're saying like deals can take a really long time. The Panda Express obviously is a national tenant, but a 9-month minimum is crazy
Sure.
to get into a space. Uh, these deals can have a lot of places where negotiations can occur, where little nitpicky things need to be figured out to give both parties the best of the deal. How do you advise them from a negotiation standpoint? And then kind of to that end, do you have any really creative deals that you can share from any past negotiations, whether
Well,
that's mom and pop or the national tenant side?
well, yeah. Well, the first part in terms of getting the mom and pop through, and I
Mhm.
think this is, we're good at it as a company because I think it's what I like to pass on to my guys
Yeah.
is that, it's a true hand holding process for some of them. We're helping them find an attorney that we've worked with to help them along. We sometimes have to find them a contractor, and then oftentimes we have to walk them through lease provisions, and we talk about this all the time, where I get to say it a little bit more than some of my guys. I have a few guys that have been with me and have been around the business for a while, but you address conversations carefully. You say,
Mm.
I'm not an attorney, but in the past we've looked at things like this, and so you should talk to your attorney about that. I'm not an engineer, but, and so you really do a lot of that hand holding, and they're so they're cautious and careful and concerned about how much money they're going to put out to try, like, hyper extreme. Panda will spend $50,000 to make sure a space is right before they ever sign a lease, because if it's wrong, it's a $15 million commitment.
Yep.
And so that math works. But for the mom and pop to spend, $2,000 on an attorney, it could break them. And
Mhm.
so you have to walk through that process carefully.
Mm.
It's a tremendous amount of hand holding that you have to go through with them.
Yeah.
So you do that, and that's part of it. That's the relationship. I'm not telling you that mom and pop's going to be the next 25 store chain by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you treat them right, besides just the good karma and that you'll make some money, you know what? Maybe their cousin wants to do a store one day, and maybe someday they're going to do five, bagel shop. Who knows? But if you take that approach all the time, you'll win out overall.
Yeah. It's
And
about, staying true to the reputation you wanna have, and,
exactly.
it can take a while, but it's worth
Yeah.
staying
Yeah.
true to it. Um,
Yeah.
Before we get more into the market itself, like trends, things you're seeing
Sure.
comps-wise, uh, how do you keep the momentum on deals going when they take so long? How do you think about, it's a lot of hand-holding, it's a lot of checking in, it's a lot of advisory. How do you keep the process moving forward and be a steward of the progression?
Well, it's fun. It's a fun question because the reality is that's exactly what we get paid for, right? Because we don't sign the lease as the tenant, and we don't sign the lease as the landlord. We are facilitators. Yes, we're service providers to everybody involved, but we are facilitators, and so we got to keep things moving. And sometimes, like I sent out a text this morning because I'm waiting for lease comments on something, and I feel like the landlord's being a little too slow, and I'm like, hey, what's going on here? You're dragging your feet. What's doing? And again, you
Mhm.
read the room in terms of how you comment, but you have to just check in. It's sometimes you're waiting for the tenant to get some plans back, or hey, check in. Hey, just want to see how everything's going. Is there something I could do for you? You offer a service and whatever, and that's all you could do.
Mhm.
That's a real huge personal aspect of what we do. I think to a certain degree, this is where it's good to have the texting and the emails, because you don't need, I don't want to have to go across town or downtown just to say, hey, how you doing? Right.
Yeah.
So, but you keep facilitating it. And again, truly, that's really what we're paid for.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's making sure the deal does close
That's it.
when it's
That's it. You
there.
got to keep everybody moving.
Absolutely. So I want to get more into technology, and that covers a few different things. It
Okay.
covers, data. It obviously covers what we do at Crexi. It covers social media, and Zelnik and Co prides itself on staying modern and using all the tools it has at its disposal. So I'd like to get into that a bit.
Okay.
So, I'll set the stage. We had this conversation in prep for this recording, but leasing data, oh my goodness, this is so hard to get.
Oh, brutal. It's
Sales
brutal.
data, you got the public record, you can hunt down all these disparate sources and eventually get to a source of truth, but there's no requirement for that in the leasing world. So, what is your approach to assembling data to allow you to best assist your clients?
It goes back to the core of this entire business, which is relationships. Because of what you just said, there's no public information, or the public information that's put out on leasing. I see these stories about leasing transactions, and this company just signed a deal over there. The asking rent was $100 a square foot. Well, that tells me nothing. It really just tells me nothing, because the deal probably got done at 72, and there was probably free rent, and there was probably some TI. So that tells me nothing. And so why I allude to relationships is because you need to be out there networking with the brokers in your community, and getting to know people over time.
Mm,
My information is currency for their information, right? I call them up and I say, hey, when you did that deal over there, how big was it? How much did they pay? Blah, 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 blah. They'll say to me, oh, you know what? What'd you do over there? Or can you keep me in mind? And that's really,
mm,
really where you're going to grab your best data. They have reports for leasing, a group called Comstack and things like that, and it's great, but they're at best guidance, but not truly factual, and you really have to double check that stuff.
mhm,
And so it adds to your day to day legwork. But that's the only way to really truly get it is through the who you know. Another source is when you're out prospecting, like when my brokers are out prospecting and things like that, and you want to call a landlord and see if his space is coming available, right?
mm,
Talk to him, get on the phone and tell him about the space down the block and what it got signed at, and then maybe he'll tell you about his stuff, whether it's his availability or some deals that he signed in his building at certain numbers. So it's a true give and take.
yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting ecosystem. It's something I'm really struck by because I think the technical term is actually an imperfect information system
Yeah.
in that there is no, it's all just based on what each individual advisor is able to gather based on who they know, based on who they go walk up to and talk to or call, like you said. And I see the value in having that give and take. I can do something for you, can you do something for me as a way to foster the relationships. But what's so interesting is that it's very manual still.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm so curious. I mean, that's something, you mentioned Comstock. It's something we're trying to do at Crexi is kind of figure out a way to bring that process into a tech facilitated arena so that it can be a little less manual, but still have that broker relationship and that
Right.
marketplace relationship. So in your perfect world, as somebody who's using technology in your business, like how do you envision that reality coming to pass? Or if you could design a system where you could use technology to inform your market knowledge and comps database, like how would you paint that picture?
Well, I think that's a really really hard question, because the data, or data that's out there, is so non-specific, as we've alluded to, and until you get people that just tell you the truth, you're really just never going to know. I mean, years ago, I'll
Mm,
give you an example. years ago, before technology, right? There was a broker, and she's no longer in the business. Actually, she passed away. God rest her soul.
Oh, wow.
Whatever. She was not a kid, but whatever. And so what happened was, but she had a great mouthpiece, and she was ahead of the curve in terms of PR and all that stuff. And the press loved her because she loved to talk. And so she would talk about this deal or that deal. And then she'd brag on the rents, which were never true. And what would happen is she was bragging on the rent because in the business, you get paid your commission
Based on rent.
based on the rent,
Mhm.
right? So if she put out a big number, everybody thought she's making all this money in the whole world. And so
Mm.
all of a sudden, what happened was that on like one of the very first $1,000 per square foot deals that were done, it made the front page of the New York Times at the time,
Wow.
and it turns out that it was not $1,000 per square foot, and so it became nutty, and so
Uh-oh.
yeah, exactly. But now with technology, the reality is that it's only going to be as good as what it's fed. See, you probably, you can go in, like you said, on the
Mhm.
sales figures, because they're public record. Someone types in the computer, give me the sales for the Upper East Side, and boom, and you get the numbers. But I don't want to say ever, because you never say ever or never, but until you get all people telling the truth, or
Mm.
closer to the truth on a manual level, this will not change.
Mm.
I've heard it all, whether it's the person bragging on 1,000 a foot when it was really 700, forget how big both of those numbers are, or I've sat, I don't know if you've heard of Rebny,
Mhm.
REBY. You've
Yeah.
heard of, okay. So Rebny, so biggest organization here in New York, real estate board in New York. And I used to sit on they had a stores committee, okay, and so we'd go in the room, and part of what you did was you talked about deals, right? This was supposed to be a room show. 80 people, 80
Mhm.
brokers, experienced brokers. It wasn't just anybody. You were voted in to share. It was about an information share,
Mm.
okay? And old school brokers in New York City, and there's still plenty of them around, they don't like sharing shit, okay? And
Yeah.
so what would happen is a prominent deal would get done. Congratulations, kudos. Tell us about it. Where did the rent get done? Great answer. Oh, I got a confidentiality. I can't tell you. Bullshit.
Mm.
Well, it's the biggest pile of shit. I'm sorry for cursing so much.
It's
So,
okay.
so that's the problem. So
Yeah.
that's the problem. So you go from
Mm.
someone who's bragging and lying, and that doesn't help you, to someone who's telling you nothing.
Yeah.
And so there are people that just won't share for whatever reason. And that's
Mm.
why I circle you back to the start of this conversation. It's all about the relationships you have.
Mm. Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I do wonder if a for the next generation perhaps of brokers, there is a world where the sharing of that information, the value of proving out that being transparent will actually net help your deals. It's not necessarily a defensible thing, 'cause it is something that brokers use to differentiate themselves and specialize with and get their clients with.
No doubt.
But I do wonder if there's a world where should, like, those specifics of a deal, and again, they're so unique per transaction,
Right.
but the stories of each deal become more apparent, it does net lift the industry like a rising tide.
And so, yes, it will. Okay. Yes, it
Mm.
will. All right. But I can't benchmark. I should say benchmark. I can't earmark it, but it's coming. All
Mm.
right. But it won't be probably in my lifetime. And the reason I say that is because there was a survey done a while ago that the most money that's being made by brokers in general, commercially speaking, whatever, are brokers in the 50 to 55 like age range, 45 to 55 age range. And a lot of that group is still from the secretive community
Mm.
in terms of certain types of information. But because there's this next gen, the wave, right? That next gen wave are all growing up in an open social media, I see everything you're doing kind of world. I listen, and sometimes I get nervous because certain information shouldn't go out too soon,
Hmm.
but they all talk much more openly. And
Sure.
so when that wave rises, as you allude to, and it still might be 10 years down the road or so, then the Crexis of the world will get retail information because they'll love talking about it. They
Yeah.
won't care. And quite frankly, probably most of the participants in the transaction won't care as much either.
Yeah.
But
It's an industry mindset shift.
it's a generational mind shift
Mhm.
because my generation, okay, because I'm an open book to the extent that I am allowed. I really am. I truly am.
Mhm.
But my generation, my peer group throughout the industry, they won't tell you shit
Mm.
unless you know them and you have a relationship. But from a widespread information gather, I think we're still a generation away.
Sure. Yeah, that'll be a very interesting transition to track over the years, and like you said, I am definitely seeing it remains, like, the most striking thing about this industry to me
Yeah,
is I think that last piece of the puzzle getting
yeah.
cracked,
And
and
by the way, what the hell everybody thinks they're hiding from everybody is beyond me. But Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I
Right.
get it in a world where there's a scarcity mindset, where it's highly competitive, where you think this secret keeping is your edge, and in a lot of cases it is. It makes sense to build the moat and be protective of it. But we're seeing it change in other industries, so I'm
Okay.
excited.
Well, we'll,
I'm
we'll see.
excited.
We'll see.
I told you this was gonna be a challenging conversation.
Yes, it is.
Touching on social media, people are sharing a lot more stories. I see, like you said, younger brokers, they'll go on, I'm thinking of Aviva, going on TikTok and showing the inside of a building that they're representing and going, "Oh, this is like here's this like mold splotch that I have to deal with today." Like getting very much into
Yeah.
the weeds of the deals that they're working on. Um, how have you integrated social media into your business? What made you kind of decide to go all in on X, on LinkedIn, start your own podcast? We can talk about podcasts as a form of social media
Sure.
and really embrace it. Like what convinced you and how do you strategize it?
Well, quite frankly, it was simple. If you recall when COVID hit, the term du jour was pivot. Right? What's everybody going to do? We're all
Mm,
sitting around, literally, with our hands tied, nothing to do. And it was just it wasn't like lightning struck or anything, but that was the moment in time to start doing things differently. And so that's when we really started to embrace it. And,
mm,
and it's been a slow ramp up, which is fine. And so that's what we did. I remember during COVID, just communicating with people, texting, whatever, right? Because there was a period where there was just no in person because there was no in person, and there was a thing. I don't know if you remember. There was an app called Clubhouse.
yep. Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
And so
Rest
all
in
of a sudden,
peace. I think it's still around, but rest
is
in
it?
peace.
Yeah. You're talking to people, and and you're meeting people
Yeah.
via this Clubhouse thing, and so that was good. And then I couldn't do anything social media wise for the most part without really my partner in crime, which is Stephanie Malloy, and she handles everything. She's been with me. She's my marketing person,
Mm,
but she's evolved nicely into the social media aspect of things and how things have changed. And so we just dive in. I mean, I get compliments because I do things very like raw, I guess. I just pick up if I want to say something, I pick up my phone, I do it, I speak, and then I post it. If
mm,
we're doing something that you were alluding to about walking through a space and you want to show something specific about a space, then Steph may edit it a little bit, because there's a little different purpose to that.
sure.
Um, I did a fair amount of stuff. When I would train for them in 2022, I did my very first marathon. I was raising money for ALS, and so I posted that, and so it became this thing, and it still is today, where going all the way back to our conversation about prospecting and cold calling, you know, you create a warm intro because most people will look you up and they'll just know you. And if you put it out there on a personal and business level combined, they know who you are. And
Mhm.
so you can start the conversation with, "Oh yeah, I woke up this morning. People know me because I get up at 3:45 in the morning, and they know that. And then so I post it, and I go run 10 miles, and you know, that's a conversation starter in most rooms,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so we've tried to utilize that and benefit that. And I'm going to the CREI summit in Palm Desert. I don't know if you're going to be.
Exciting.
You're going to be
I
see
will
it.
be there. I'm giving a talk. I'm very excited.
I just Mo Regalado talk. I'm giving like 3 talks. I have like 3 things. I'm not, so,
We'll try to go to
so
yours. Make sure they don't overlap.
exactly. Yeah, I'm interviewing Mo Regalado and Bob Knackel. I'm the moderator.
Amazing. I love
Yeah, yeah.
that. That's
So,
gonna be a
so
good
so
one.
you do right. So now all of a sudden I'm doing that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and so and look, I'm recognized. I joked. I was walking down the street the other day with my daughter, my wife, and I think my mother was with us. So just 4 of us walking down the street, and a guy says, "Hey," and I go, "Hey," and I have no idea who he is, right? And just joking,
That's New York.
just joking to my mother and my
Yeah.
wife and daughter. I'm like, "Oh yeah, he probably follows me on the gram," and they were like, "Shut the fuck up." But I have fun. I have fun with it. It's a hoot, and we grab some business along the way. It's not. I don't have any real true measure of the business that's come our way, but opportunities have come our way for sure.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like you said, it is a way that you own your visibility and your brand
Right.
online in a world where people want to know who they're dealing with first. If you put your authentic self out there, which you do, waking up at 3:45 is crazy for me personally. I'm very happy for you that you do that.
Right.
But like that's an authentic thing.
Yeah.
And I think something that some people when they're maybe first starting out, like trying to experiment with social media, they're like, "Oh, I have to put on this personality or like what am I gonna say? How do I say it? Really worry about punctuation, which I don't know, do that if you want. But it is really at its core about the authenticity.
Exactly.
And I appreciate that you got that sense from the start because once you tap into it, you can see the payoff. Like you can see these other accounts engaging with you. You get these opportunities, you get this business.
Sure.
Um, and it's definitely worked very well for me because, well, that's how we
Right.
met.
Yes.
But it's worked for you. You know, it's bringing in actual dollars and deals for you. So, how do you balance that authenticity, that being present online with the rest of your business and make sure you still have time for the actual things that do get the paychecks coming in.
Pay the bills.
Yeah.
What I've done, like when I do this stuff, look, I have the best backdrop of anybody. I have New York City, so if I just do something off the street, boom, boom, boom,
Mhm.
right? I walk. New York City is a walking town, so I'm always walking from point A to point B. And so if I shoot something and just say something and post it up, that's cost me no time, right? That's not it's not a time suck. I go from A to
Mhm.
B, and then
Mhm.
when I do the podcast, I do our podcast. We tape, every other week. I book out, in my calendar. It's an hour. It's an hour. I
Mhm.
block out an hour, and so just like taking a meeting. So you know, if we're that visible, then great. We're doing our job, but it doesn't have the appearance of a true time suck.
Mm.
Um, by any level, and so that's been important to us. We had this. This is a weird day in terms of scheduling where I had, I did my podcast right before this, and then we had this schedule just worked out that way. But
Mhm.
rarely am I having 2.5 or so hours that are just purely social media
Yeah.
kind of thing. But the mindset has always been about the fact that this is the constant networking of who we are, who I am, what we do. And so there's a purpose.
Mhm.
So we
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And, kinda to that point, the biggest obstacle I hear or, objection I hear about being present on social media is exactly that. Like, I don't want to appear as though I'm just wasting time tweeting,
Right.
to my clients. I don't wanna come off that way.
Yeah, of course not. Of course
Yeah,
not.
but like you said, the big picture is maximizing that exposure and that visibility, and honestly, your success. Like, if you close a deal, you talk about it. It's a case study, it's a testimonial, it's proof that you know what you're talking about, demonstrations of your market knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, just every opportunity you can use to pre-negotiate the first meeting.
Right. Engage, educate, entertain.
Mhm. The 3 E's.
There
That's going in the panel, I bet.
you go. Well, that's a Mo Regalado one. I got to give her credit.
Ah, she's the best. And before we hop into our rapid fire questions, what is a word of advice that you would give to fellow brokers that are maybe looking to kind of push into this new brave new world of social media and being online?
Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Don't, if there's anything you want to be mindful of is, don't get on, certainly don't be offensive. And if there's certain things you can or cannot say about particular companies, then don't. But there are so many things you could possibly say about what you do and how you go about doing it and who you are and what you are. Just do it. Right. Uh, Gary Vee has said it enough times and enough people have said it enough times. Just do it.
Mm, like Nike, just do it.
Oh, I see that one.
All right, rapid fire question time. Are you game?
Uh-oh.
Let's
Uh-oh.
do it. They're not that hard. They're more fun. This is a different answer in New York than any other market. But if I handed you $50 million today and you had
Yes.
to invest it in commercial real estate by 5 p.m. today, where would you park that capital and why?
I would park it anywhere I could within New York City with where there is a retail component. It's what I know. It's what I love. I know there's money making ability through it, and it's long term.
Any particular neighborhood you're bullish on?
Um, I like the Upper East Side.
Yeah,
I
me
love the
too.
Upper East Side.
It's nice. It's just got a charm to it. You
Yep.
feel good walking around those
It's
streets.
got a lot. It's got a lot. It's got a charm, but it's got a longevity. And so
Yes.
that's if I'm investing, that's what I like.
Sure. Yeah. That's my probably one of my favorite parts of New York. Every time I visit, I have to go walk those
Great.
streets. uh, I probably know an answer to this question too, but what is the craziest way that you found a new client or a new deal?
Well, I don't know about crazy, but it's apropos of the world we live in today. But I was at a charity event and I walked up to a gentleman whose name just happens to be Donald Trump
Oh,
and started talking with him. And about a week later, I was in his office with him and with his daughter Ivanka. And my client happened to be a very high end beauty salon here in New York City, and we would look. And if Ivanka happened to be a customer of the salons,
oh wow.
we were having a wonderful conversation. We tried to put together a deal. I thought it was hysterical that the space showing that they showed us, Trump's security guard took us through the space. So that was sort of a fun interaction.
Huh.
Unfortunately, we didn't make a deal, but there's some fun there, and so I think it just
Wow.
apropos of the times that we're in.
Uh New York, you just walk up. It's such a good town. I love New York. As a California girl, I love New York. What is your favorite technology that you use on the job?
My
Since we're
favorite,
favorite
my favorite
technology that you use on the job?
it's the phone. It's my phone.
Cell
It's just the
phones.
phone. It really just covers everything. It just covers everything.
Yep. Yeah. I don't think any of us could live without it these days,
Right. Right.
unfortunately, for better or worse.
Exactly.
And then what is the most common misconception about being a broker or being in commercial real estate in general?
If you think it's easy, you are wrong. You are dead wrong. It looks sexy. Social media helps make it look sexy. Commercial ain't residential. What Ryan Serhant and his team do, it's fabulous. The apartments are sexy. They're gorgeous, whatever. This ain't it.
Hmm.
So you got to work hard. You got to roll up your sleeves, and you got to have some soft shoes, and you got to work your ass off.
Yeah, don't wear the hard leather. That's the best. The last words of advice, just don't linen suits and soft shoes.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh, I love it. Corey, thank you so much. This has been such a fun podcast to record. Where can people find you if they wanna connect? I think I mentioned your social handles, but let's get
I,
them
I
again
did.
for
Yeah, absolutely, Shanti. This has really been great. There's a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. So you could track me down, Cory Zelnik on Instagram, on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, on LinkedIn. It's all under my name, CoryZelnik. You could follow the company at Zelnik Co, Zelnikco. We're all around the town. We're doing the best we can to turn ourselves into Kardashians.
It's a family business. It's a family
Exactly.
business.
Exactly.
Amazing. Ugh, thank you so much again. Thank you everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please do not miss the next one. Visit crexi.com/podcast and sign up to get the next episode delivered straight to your inbox. You can also subscribe to the Crexi Podcast on your favorite podcast app or check out our YouTube channel for video recordings of this and each episode. Take care and be sure to tune in next time.